My name is Valerie Haven, and I have been teaching online for over 20 years at different universities and colleges. I have taught in the on-ground classroom, but I prefer the online environment because it gives me some options and some access to both design and content that makes it easier for both me and my students to be able to go through it together and talk about it together. I want you to know that I'm blind. The reason I'm telling you this is because online education can be a very useful resource for people with all different kinds of disabilities and also people who have access and or functional disabilities. Right now, I work for the Instructional Design graduate program, and I teach a course on universal course design. When I build my courses, I use two main techniques. One is universal design, and the other one is the synergistic learning theory. It says that there are three participants in every online course. There's the student, there's the professor, and the third participant is the technology. So before I retired from the university, I worked for the Ross Center as their technological coordinator. So I know a lot about technology, and it's comfortable for me to use it with my students. So those two principles of the universal course design and the synergistic learning theory, they meld well together to create an opportunity where you can basically let the students be in charge of their own learning. And it's really wonderful to watch them do it. My outcomes are mostly that the students design either a piece of software or a learning objective of their own, or a piece of content that they like. I have a list of about 20 suggestions, suggested topics, suggested resources. Then the students are welcome to pick either one of the options that is on my list. But if what they're most interested in is not on my list, they're allowed to propose another topic. So as long as I know about it and I agree to it, then I'm really fine with them doing something new. The most important piece, along with the research paper and some of the individual writing that the students do, is that they have a semester-long group project that's based on the principles of universal design and how that will either support or not support either K-12 education or higher education. So there's a lot of flow in my course. There is a good bit of time management because I have to keep everybody on track. I have tried moving ahead, letting people move ahead when they want to go and go faster. I actually like to keep my students in the same place. That is not always feasible. So because they're getting access to information before everybody else. So that's a problem in my group projects. But the way I handle that is that they have to write a single page document on why this is important for the group. And then they present that to the group. And then the group gets a chance to try it out. And if they like it, they can work on it more. The first thing I do is I build the basic structure for every weekly session. So all of my weekly sessions look exactly the same way. And I do that on purpose so the students don't have to spend time each week looking for the information that they need to do their work. And I use a very simple design. I have what to do, what to read, what to think about. There are the three categories. So under what to read, those are the assigned readings. What to think about, that's the lectures and other resources that I post. And then the what to do is whatever project they're working on. So I put the what to do in, partly keep everybody on track regarding the semester-long project, and partly so that we all get to know a little bit about how each person learns, and if they need support, in the class, what supports do they need. What I do, I scaffold the first 6 weeks of my class. So on the first day of class, we don't do a lot except introduce ourselves. I talk about this, I go over the syllabus. I have a little tool that the students can watch on how to navigate the actual course, the shell of the website. And that's just about all I want them to do, along with getting started on a very light assignment. The first week, they get an assignment to do just a 2-page reflection paper on what their experience has been with people with disabilities, or even just people that have a different learning experience from them. The other reason that I scaffold the first 6 weeks of my class is, first of all, to find out how comfortable the students are with the tools and learning in the online environment. It can be a struggle in the beginning. I have learned myself from a lot of years of doing this, that if a student is still having trouble with the class, and I mean mostly like they're trying to find the lectures, or they want to know where the assignment is and they can't find it, that indicates that they may need some more training, which I'll do myself, if depending on how much it is, or they might have a disability or some kind of a cognitive issue that I'd need to look at. So I would say for me at 6 weeks, if there's a serious issue, I still have enough time to adjust the upcoming classes after this 6th week to support the student or students that are having a hard time. It's easier to make changes once you've gotten basic information in. I use a variety of communication tools in my courses. I use a lot of music. I choose different colors and different images to help make my point in my class. The other thing I like to do within the first 6 weeks of class is that as people are introducing themselves, I ask them to tell all of us one story that either nobody knows because it happened a long time ago, or it's a story of something that they're really proud about that happened in their world and they would like to share. That tends to build trust, because I do it too. I switch back and forth between, I had a crush on Kermit the Frog when he first became a TV star, and now he's 50 years old, which is amazing to me. I tell some cute story about myself, or whatever I feel like I need to say to the group that will help them trust me and help them understand who I am. For me, being consistent in my communication is also important. So I look at my course every day. I usually am in it around 4 times a day. It'll be more as we get towards midterms and finals, but 4 times a day is often enough. And if they have projects they have to do and they turn them in, I can grade them while I'm waiting for somebody, or they can pop into the online chat sessions and talk to me, things like that, which really just, for me, once I get students' trust, I usually have a pretty easy time after that. I use discussion very heavily because it allows people to just get in there, say what they need to say, because there's a lot of asynchronous teaching in my class. So students learn from each other, and they do that through discussion. But I also, along with the discussion itself, I add another area. It's like a separate discussion thread, but it's designed for only one thing. And what it's for is when students use very technical terms, and universal design does have technical terms, they are asked by me to post the term and a brief definition. I do this because my course is, I believe, an elective. So students generally entering my class at a certain point in their degree program. So I may have students that are about to graduate, and I may have students that it's their very first class. So I don't want anyone to feel left out. I do a couple of other things with the tools. You can make videos using Screencast-O-Matic where you can take a screenshot, for instance, of Blackboard, and you can put a little arrow in, like the ones you see in PowerPoint slides, and you can move it around as you're talking, and you can point with the little arrow to the aspects of the web page that you're discussing at the time, if you want to support students and finding where the information is. I also let them record their chats. I do actually allow them to edit their discussion threads. You'll learn as you get more comfortable with Blackboard that you can set it so that students cannot change their post once they've submitted it, but there is another setting where they can actually go back and revise it. The auditory people love the video, the audio option. They can just record themselves on their phones or their laptops because it's just easier for them to get in front of a camera than to write everything out. So I allow people to choose how they're going to present within the discussion board, and they do well with it. And there's rules, like I have rubrics that say that you can't just write, "Hi there, that was a great post," because they have to post a certain number of times within a week in order to get points for towards their grade. So one of the things they can't do is say, I love that. That's, they can say that, but they have to say, they need to say something that's a little bit more content driven right after that. And again, I don't tend to have students struggle with that, but some do. I found that by recording a weekly video of myself introducing the topic of each session helped my students unbelievably so. They got to see my face, and that doesn't happen that much in online classes because most of the time when they're going to see your face is in Zoom or whatever synchronous chat system you're going to use. But I actually have a talk. I do a 10 to 15 minute presentation. I talk about whatever the weekly topic is. I talk about why I like what I picked out. I usually bring in some kind of a device or something that it makes the topic for that particular week more tangible. And we found out how important the weekly videos are by accident. One week, the man that does the videos went on vacation, and I didn't know that he was going. And this was very near the end of the semester, so we didn't film the last 3 videos. Well, my students basically, everybody emailed and said, "Where's the video? I want the video." So we found out how important that video is. It helps them connect to me, even if I'm not even live. They can just see they can see me, they can see my face and my outfit and whatever tool I have in my hand. And they just find that it makes the course as a whole very relevant. The way I handle my discussion, particularly if I have a large group of people in my class, is I will actually post 3 or 4 related discussion questions in a weekly topic. The problem with large groups is that there's only so much any one person can say about a topic, and after a while they can't keep saying the same thing over and over again, and then the students run out of things to say. I have found it easier to divide the students into groups and have them do a half-hour conversation each week, and then 1 or 2 people take responsibility for posting. And this is a great thing because I use the same technique for my group project. So when my students are doing work in a group for whatever reason, I don't grade them. I let the students grade each other. This has worked really well because you'll find that in any group, probably above maybe 7 is a little bit large. That's a little bit large of a group. I like to say 3 to 5 people in my groups. But if there's a big group, somebody's going to get frustrated because they're doing 90% of the work, and the other people are only doing, 3.5% of the work. Since they grade each other, and they know that I will accept whatever grade they hand in, and then I just average the grades, and the whole group gets the same grade. They keep each other accountable. It works really well, and it'll keep you from pulling your hair out. The other thing I do, this is not common in higher education. It's used more in K-12, but again, this works really well in higher education. So if you have a lot of reading in your course, and I have a fair amount of mine, instead of making each person read the information and then write like a one-page paper or something like that, I do it a little differently. So students are not going to read everything we ask them to read. In a happy world, they would be reading everything, but they don't. So a great way to help students take in the reading more easily and also support their learning styles is I usually break up people into pairs, and each pair gets a few chapters of a book, or they get an article if there's 3 or 4 articles that are posted, and the pair will read the document, and then together they will write a synopsis of what it was about. And this cuts down on their workload, and it increases their comprehension tremendously. My students, for the most part, really like this. It also actually helps dispel the isolation that many students feel learning in the online environment. I would encourage you to use your creativity. Many faculty think creativity goes away when they teach online, and I understand why they say that, but it's really not true. You all have a lot of creativity, and you can come up with whatever way you want to present your information each week. But I would suggest that whatever you decide to do, that it be consistent. And if you need to make a change in the middle of the course for some reason, you let the students know a couple of weeks in advance that there's a change coming. So I do that to make it as easy as I can for the students, and to make sure that you have to do some maintenance. You have to make sure the links are working, because things can happen to them. You need to make sure that there's some place on each web page where there's maybe a hyperlink that has your phone number, or maybe an email address, things like that, where they know how to get in touch with you in case there's an emergency, things like that. And then along with all the options that I put in there for my students, it seems to be the most important one is how I develop my lectures. So my lectures are written out, and they're posted in about 18 font, which is between 14 and 18 font is considered to be large print. So I put the large print choice onto the web page, and then I run my lecture through speech to text to speech. And what that means is I've taken a printed document and I've turned it into an audio document. So many of our students are reading their homework and their required readings while they're driving. It just seems to be the way of the world now. So, and also people are often reading their my lectures and their content off their phones. The phone makes it really difficult to read because the screen is so little. So by making the font of the lecture larger, and also making it possible they can increase it if they need to, and they can do that by downloading it, then that gives them some more choices on how they can read in the environment in which they are. So I have a tendency to tell people to go to the beach and read, which is what I like to do. But there's different ways that can happen. So consistency is very important. Don't throw your pictures away. They're important too. You just want to use them in a way that the pictures support what your lecture is about, and how the readings you've assigned are going to feed into the overall concepts. The instructional design team on the campus also know a lot about that as well. They've helped me quite a bit. So you can ask them questions about how you would put in a picture or use music in an inclusive way.